Hi, everyone. Today is a big day for me because I am so thrilled to have author Claire Fuller with me. I honestly almost can't believe this is happening. Claire is the author of 5 books, including Our Endless Numbered Days, Swimming Lessons, Bitter Orange, Unsettled Ground, and most recently, The Memory of Animals. We have a lot to discuss. So without further ado, welcome, Claire.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction and thanks for inviting me on.
Uh,
I'm delighted to be here.
well, I'm absolutely thrilled. Did I get those in the correct order?
You did. You did very well. I'm
Okay.
impressed.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've read all of them except Our Endless Numbered Days, and I did go back and begin rereading. And I have to say, it's hard to know where to begin, but I'll start by saying that for me personally, I am so drawn to you because having read 4 of your 5, you are one of, if not the most original author out there. I never know when I open one of your books what I'm going to be treated to, and it's always something different. Which I mean, I know, for some people there's comfort in going to an author that you know what you're going to get, and your originality is unparalleled. So I guess I'll start by asking, it's probably not a simple question, but when when did you begin writing, and where do these stories like germinate? Where do your ideas
Yeah.
come from?
Um, well, I started writing late. I started writing when I was 40, and I started writing short stories, not because I wanted to be a writer. It kind of never occurred to me to be a writer. I'd
Oh,
always been a reader, but writing was not something that I thought that I would be any good at, or I even tried. And then I was doing some kind of public art projects with my husband. And part of that was doing some writing some short stories as part of a kind of public project where you read them out to an audience and so on. And and I well, I was going to say I found that I quite liked writing, but actually I don't like writing. I still don't like writing. I like having written. So, the kind of act of creation is really difficult. But when I've finished something, it's like, yes, I did it. So I started writing short stories, and then I decided to do an MA in creative writing, or an MFA. And I wrote Our Endless Numbered Days on that course. And in the UK, Penguin bought it, and in the US, Tin House bought it, and I kind of carried on them from there. And I'm still endlessly surprised that this is now what I do, because it was never planned. It just kind of fell upon me in a very odd way.
it was an organic occurrence. That, I think that
Sorry, I missed that.
I said it was kind of an organic occurrence. It's just, I mean, that's interesting because
Yes.
so many people say that I always wanted to be a writer. I've been at this forever, and finally something got picked up, and you're kind of the antithesis to that.
I know. And I kind of feel a bit bad about it because I understand how difficult it is to get published. I
Right.
do know that it's really difficult. I'm
That's
just
what we
checking you can
hear.
hear me okay, because it says that my internet connection is unstable, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm
it's
hardwired, so I can hear you, but I know sometimes that
okay.
happens.
Okay, I'll just keep going.
Yep.
Um,
We are very far apart, so it's pretty
yeah.
incredible that's happening anyway. So, um, well, I guess so. In terms of your writing life, as an author, is this something that you get up every day and do? Do you adhere to a schedule? Have a writing spot? I did read that you don't like to write, which is kind of funny, but you love to edit.
Yeah. Yes, exactly that. So I do have a routine because I worked in a marketing agency for 23 years before I started to write full time. And so that kind of 9 till 6 office hours is just, I think, ingrained in me. So I am at my desk at 9 and I generally finish at about 6. But it depends where I am in the writing process. You know, if I'm if I'm writing a first draft, you're right, I don't like to do it. And often I'm at my desk at 6, but I'm kind of doing a bit of research, doing some procrastination, reading other novels, going for walks, and then my bit of writing starts at 5 o'clock, and I write from 5 till 6. But I try to write every day, and then when the first draft is finished and it's time to edit, then I will kind of edit from 9 o'clock till 6 o'clock because I just love that. You know, once the words are on the page and you know roughly what the story is, then you can just play with it and I just love that element of it. So,
I love editing too. I love editing other people's work, which I do with I work with high school students who are applying to college. So we work on their essays, but I love that process too. But writing can be painful. I'm not an author, so.
Yeah. And I am lucky enough to have this room that you can see here as my writing studio. I'll give you a little tour if you want.
Oh, we would love that.
Finally. So I live in a converted chapel. So you can see kind of the chapel windows. This is my view just of trees and things.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Other way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's really, really lovely room. I'm very, very lucky.
That's good for thought. I mean, it's to have like atmosphere and character, I find, and, you know, not to be sitting in a sterile environment. So
although I'm easily distracted, you know, I could just look out there over the fields and rather than, you know, down at my computer. But anyway,
it's a reason not to write at a coffee shop or something like that.
Yeah,
distractions. Well, I recently reread Swimming Lessons. So I first encountered you with Swimming Lessons. And I reread it. And I have to say, I just said in my recent review, because the first time I read it, it was pre me being on Goodreads or Instagram. It was just for me. And I will say that probably of the 4 of your 5 that I've read, this is my favorite, and it aged very well. I felt like it got better with age. I mean, it is truly a book lover's book. It's got all the atmosphere and this, you know, the story about letters being hidden in books, and it's kind of an epistolary ilk to it. It's I just absolutely love it. I have to ask you, of your 5, and I've asked authors this before, I know it's like asking if you have a favorite child. Do you have a favorite?
Well, my answer is often that it has to be the latest, the most recent, because otherwise, does that not mean that I'm getting worse, you know, if it's a previous one? But I do have a huge fondness, I think, for Unsettled Ground. But maybe that's because I have a real fondness for Jeannie, the character in that book, and how different she is from me, but how I have kind of so much sympathy for her. She still feels very much alive for me, you know, whereas other characters in other novels, they've gone, I've forgotten them, but Jeannie still has a place in my heart, I suppose. So maybe that book, but I'm interested to see, you know, what happens with The Memory of Animals, because it hasn't been out that long in the terms, you know, in the life of books. It's still not out in paperback yet. So, you know, I want to see what happens with that one.
I have heard authors say that when they're done, the characters continue for them in their minds. They think about them, and but so for you, it's that one character.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, it's Jeannie. All the others have gone. I kind of live with them. For me, it feels like such a long time. You know, it's about 3-4 years that I've just had enough. They can go.
I think I heard you say that in another interview that I listened to, that you were like happy to be done with them and say goodbye.
Yeah, because also the next idea is kind of knocking on the door, and I want to get on with that. I don't want to linger with what went before, because it's out there. I can't make any changes, so I just want to start the new project. So yeah, usually the characters are just completely forgotten. They're gone.
That's great. I think,
Yeah,
not to, you're not holding on to the past at all. You're able to let it go and like kind of like clean the slate and begin again. It's
they don't.
Having started later, as you say that you started later, writing, you've been prolific.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think I am fairly prolific, but it looks more that way because of the publishing cycle. So, I started writing in 2011, and then my first novel was published in 2015. So even before 2 years before it was published, I was writing the previous one. So I'm just ahead, a long way ahead. So it looks like, oh, she's just publishing one a year or something, or one every 2 years. But most of them take me three and a half years or so.
And from what we hear, from what I hear from other authors, the publishing world as well is slow. I mean, things don't. I mean, your writing is just one component of a very long process. So
yeah, it's really slow, and I understand why. There's so much that they have to get sorted before a book comes out. All the publicity, all the marketing, the cover, the editing, proofreading. There's a lot that goes into it, and you have to fit into a schedule that already exists.
Have you been with Tin House through
the whole time?
That's great, because I know authors jump around.
They do jump around, but Tin House have been amazing,
right,
for me. And I've had the same editor the whole time for all 5 novels. And I hope Maisie Cochran, she's just wonderful. And I hope, she'll continue to carry on editing my books. I'm really, really happy with them.
And that's nice. That's another relationship you don't often hear that continues.
No. And they always produce such great covers in America. I think they're just stunning how they produce the books.
Yeah, I have to say your covers are all, I have just 3 of them here with me. I said in my last review, I don't know, I have Bitter Orange, I can't find it, but I mean, this was the first one that I owned. And then, I mean, Unsettled Ground is so incredibly beautiful. And but these are just, Memory of Animals is,
it's lovely.
I could stare at that. I could stare at it I did the other day for a very long time, looking for the octopus, and there it is on the back. But I'm fascinated with cover art between the UK and the United States, and how vastly different they can be, and whether authors have a preference for one over the other. But yours are different, I believe.
It's only Swimming Lessons that was similar.
Okay.
So Swimming Lessons was designed by Tin House in-house at Tin House in their art department, and then Penguin liked it so much they bought the rights to produce it for the UK cover. Although I think then they went ahead and did a different paperback. But I really like the UK covers as well. I mean, it's just great fun getting them in and seeing the difference. And then all the books have been translated into different languages, and those usually have different covers, and that's just fascinating to see.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite rabbit holes to go down, to investigate whether I want the book with the UK cover or United States cover. And it's always logging onto Blackwell's and deciding, but whatever, all of yours are beautiful. So that is one of the beautiful, I think I said about your books, they're beautiful inside and out.
Oh, thank you.
I said in my review of The Memory of Animals that I came away from that book with so many questions running through my head. There's a lot happening in that book. But in my swimming lessons reread, which was just like 2 weeks ago, I came across a quote that I feel like maybe gave me a clue into your writing. The quote is, "Writing does not exist unless there is someone to read it, and each reader will take something different from a novel, from a chapter, from a line. A book becomes a living thing when it interacts with a reader."
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So to myself, I said, so in my quest for pressing answers to questions that I had, or things that came to my mind, reading The Memory of Animals, I may have answered it. There aren't answers. We all interpret what we read differently. So I guess my question to you is that, with that quote, I mean, is this something that you feel deeply like this book is now yours in the hands of the reader? You take from it what you would like. I don't have answers for you.
Very, very much so. That is exactly what I believe, because you just know that that's the case. I used to do this little test when I went to book clubs for who had read Our Endless Number Days. And in Our Endless Number Days, two of the characters go to a remote cabin in the woods in Germany. And in the book, I describe it really clearly, over the course of the book. But in these book clubs, I would get everybody to draw the cabin as they saw it. And every cabin was always completely different. So that's just one tiny example that we all bring our own biases to novels, our own histories, some idea of where we've traveled, what we've seen, what else we've read, what we might be doing at the time that we're reading. And I love that about books, that they are created, excuse me, in the head of the reader. I put some words on the paper, and then when it's out there being read by other people, they create the book, because they have to visualize the things that I put down. And so that's kind of also why I like writing ambiguous endings or not providing all the answers, because I think it is actually up to the reader to do some of the work. And in a way, swimming lessons, I decided to write a book that was a real example of that. So without giving anything away, the ending is so ambiguous that the reader has to decide what they're reading. I don't provide any answers. And so some readers decide one thing and some readers will decide another. I'm quite curious to see what you think, Deb, but I don't know how we can discuss it without giving stuff away. But
I will email you. I definitely know what I think at the end of swimming lessons. But I had, like I said, I read it right when it came out, back when it was a book of the month club pick. And back in the day when I was a book of the month club member, and I had forgotten how nebulous that ending was. And then this time I was like, right. And then the more I thought about it, I do believe, I know what I believe, but I think that's a fascinating way. It's also a very provocative way to get people to interact more with the text, to really examine, what do I think? It's why I was an English major, because I like to do that. And sometimes I want answers, and they're just not there. But I thought, as when I came across that quote, it was just like a light went off.
Yeah, and I know that some readers are frustrated by that. They want answers. They want answers at the end of a book, but I don't provide them generally.
And I think literary fiction is very much that way. There are certain genres, there are certain, books that you will always have an answer, and it's just that's not what you write. Yeah. So I would say when I read The Memory of Animals, speculative and dystopian are two words that are usually like big no-nos for me. I tend to steer clear of them. However, in your hands, it did work for me. And I think that's mostly because of H, who is the octopus. If people haven't read it, we're not, there's no spoilers. But H is an octopus. So for me, and I posted this a couple of times and you and I communicated on Instagram, this felt like a bit of an animal rights story to me. And I'm such an animal lover and I'm all in that. And I don't know if that's if you set out to do that, to kind of shine a light on suffering, on creatures suffering. But for me, that's where the story really like clicked on a different level. And the fact that that our main character, Neffy, almost becomes a lab rat, for lack of a better, term, a lab rat in the way, flipping it the way humans study animals, and she ends up being studied. I just thought that was brilliant. And I guess I'm asking you, did you set out to do that? I mean, do you feel this way, or did that happen organically as well?
It happened organically.
Okay.
Yeah, I never kind of start with a theme or an idea that I want to explore. I start with a character in a place and I see what happens from that. Okay. And at some point, so I had Neffy volunteering for this trial, and at some point I had to decide, well, what's her job going to be? And I thought, oh, she could be a marine biologist specializing in octopuses, because I've always loved octopuses. And then then I started looking at octopuses, and I look at trials and them in labs, and there seems to be a lovely parallel there. And then I make Neffy a vegetarian, and I start examining all that stuff and things about animals in zoos. And it's not like I am providing answers. I feel like I'm just providing either questions or things to think about. I'm not saying we should never test animals. I'm not saying we should never eat animals. I'm not vegetarian, although I am never going to eat octopus again. So, I'm just kind of examining those ideas in this novel. But there were other ideas, I think, as well, that I was trying to explore.
Well, as an animal loving vegetarian who won't go to zoos, I loved it. I was, like I said, we all find, as we read, we connect on certain levels. And that was my and I just thought the fact that it wasn't deliberate, but it worked so well. It really worked. It worked so well. And there were a good friend of mine had told me, I was like, I don't know, the speculative. She's like, no, you have to read this. And then I reached back out to her. I was like, Megan, the octopus parts, I'm dying here. And she was like, oh, Deb, I so forgot about those. I was like, I'm very I'm so sensitive. I don't have triggers with reading except when it comes to animals. If there's animal, cruelty or abuse or stuff like that, I'm just that's where I absolutely draw the line. But so some of those parts were really, I mean, octopuses are having a moment.
They are, aren't they? They are. And I don't know.
It's great.
Yeah, it is great. But, I was writing this long before My Octopus Teacher came out on Netflix.
And so before the pandemic. I read you started this before the pandemic, and yet, I mean, it's not COVID, but it's a pandemic novel. That's almost,
I know.
It's incredible.
Far too prescient, isn't it? So, I can hold my hand up and say, I'm sorry, it's my fault.
You started it. Yeah. No, I read that or heard it somewhere, and I was like, I just assumed.
Yeah, people do, and that's fine as well. But it was September 2019 I started writing.
Right.
I've always loved reading post-apocalyptic fiction, pandemic fiction, end of the world fiction, especially if it's literary. I'm not too far on the kind of real genre side. things like The Road, which, is really a tough read, but I absolutely love it. And so I've always wanted to write a post-apocalyptic novel. And I know you haven't read Our Endless Number Days, but in a funny kind of way, that is also an end of the world novel, although
Right. It sounded like it when I read I will read it.
Yeah.
I need to go
So
back.
it kind of comes full circle. I've actually written a real one, which was fun until the COVID came along. And then I thought, what am I doing writing this?
Yeah, truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, definitely.
Truly. Well, I have to say that we're on Instagram here, and you are very good at Instagram. And I talk to authors. I figured I had to throw this in here. I talk to a lot of authors, and I know that they are told by their publishers and marketing and publicity that this is kind of like a piece of social media you need to embrace because we've got Bookstagram and you need to learn this. And yet, I talked to Carl Geary last week. I've talked to a couple who are like, I hate it. I don't like to do it. I'm just not present. I can't. So I guess my question is, do you enjoy it? I mean, it seems like you do.
I love it. I
Okay.
really love it. But I think the difference is I wouldn't love it if all I was posting about was me and my books,
Right.
because then it would be, oh, buy my book, and that is excruciating for authors. And I think maybe that's why some authors find it very difficult and don't enjoy it, because it just feels like too much self-promotion. Whereas I hope that the self-promotion might come along with the other stuff that I post about, which is the books that I read. So it's such a joy to put a book out there that I've read and loved, and then have all these comments back of people saying, oh, I'm going to go and read that, sounds great. And then they read it and they come back and say, thank you so much. And then I find other books that other people have read, or I post about a book and people say, oh, that sounds very similar to this, have you read this? And then I'll go and read that and I love it. And, it's just book recommendations. Why would you not love that?
It is a fun space. I love it when you do your, like library, when you go to your shelves, which are incredible, and pull down a book. I'm like, oh, yay, she has another one. And those are always fun. And, Ann Patchett does a little bit of that too. If you haven't read it, it's new to you. And that's yes, that's exactly why I love this. So pretty much the only reason I'm in this space. I mean, and animals too. I said it's the books that I read and my animals. But I find when I talk to authors that it's really one way or the other. Like, oh no, I can't. I've had authors say, oh no, I'll never see that DM, email me. I'm never on Instagram. And I was like, wow, Claire does really well with this.
Yeah, I'm on it a lot, but I enjoy it.
Well, I'm sure your publisher is happy with you because it's kind of where it's really, you got to promote it, and it's part of the publicity now. But anyway, so of course I'm going to ask this question, and you don't have to answer it. I always say some authors don't like to, but you seem pretty forthcoming with what you're doing. Is there something in the works now, or is it too close on the heels of?
Oh no, I usually start the next day. There's no gap between books, because the ideas are coming when I'm finishing the previous book, and as I said, I kind of want to get on with that. So I'm approximately about 50,000 words into the next one, but just the first draft. So there'll be lots of editing to do, and I work in a very organic way, as I said earlier. So I kind of, well, I know what I've written, but I have no idea where it's going or how it will end. But
you don't work with an outline.
No outline, no. But it's set in 1987, probably in the town where I've lived for many years, in Hampshire in England. And it's about 16-year-old, well, an older woman looking back when she was 16 at the time, and she kills someone. And she buries them, and they haunt her. They actually haunt her. So it's kind of a ghost story, kind of psychological stuff. Yeah,
Wow.
that's what seems to be happening.
Now, how long do we have to wait for this one?
Well, yeah, it's still a little while because I have to finish it, then I have to edit it, and then I have to see whether my publishers want to buy it. They only buy one book at a time, and I have to finish it before they decide that. So we'll have to see.
It sounds good. It sounds good. And original. Again, always original. Okay, this is the only question that I warned you about. I would love it if you would share just, it can be anything. Books that you love to recommend. I know you often recommend on your Instagram page, favorite authors, most recent favorite book, anything. Just share some of your life as a reader.
Yeah, I did think about this, and there are obviously so many I could recommend, but the kind of joy I'm having at the moment with reading is I discovered probably 2 or 3 years ago Sue Miller, who was new to me, an American author. Yeah, and I listened to Monogamy, her latest novel, which is something like her 11th, and I'd not even heard of her before, and I just loved that. And so
I listened to that too, and it is a great audiobook.
It really is, really is. And I just thought, who is this author? I've never heard of her. And I went to look her up, and there were 10 previous books, and I thought, oh, that is, when you discover that there's a backlist.
Right.
So I'm trying to limit myself, but it's really hard. I've read 4 of hers this year so far.
Wow.
And I just want some more. So I've just finished quite recently The Senator's Wife.
Yep.
Which her writing is just, I think, it's just the perfect writing for me. You kind of sink into it. It's all so believable, but so beautifully written. And then she suddenly goes, but then this happens. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming, but you've set it up so brilliantly. And it's one of those moments at the end of that book, especially, that you think, how did I not see that coming? Right. Oh my God. But actually, if I go back, of course that's the way it's gonna go.
I didn't know she had written 11. I knew The Senator's Wife, and I loved Monogamy, and there's one other, and I'm blanking on it, that I've read, but I had no idea 11.
Yeah. I think her debut was quite big, The Good Mother.
Okay.
Lots of people read that, and that kind of started her off. But yeah, there's quite a few still. So I still have a few to go, and I'm trying to limit myself, but it's very, very hard.
I'd love to dive into backlist. I love to read a recent novel and then go back. It's one of my favorite. I'm doing it right now with Nathan Hill, who just wrote Wellness. And I went back to his, it's called The Nix. But that's a common occurrence for me.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's great, isn't it? When you discover that there's lots of other books to read. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, I don't want to cut you off. Is there anything else that you want to share?
I watch a lot of films, and I know we're talking about books, but I also recently read Foster by Claire Keegan, which I know lots of people love. I mean, I've just posted about that today, was it? Oh yeah. Just universal love for that book. But interestingly, I read it after I saw the film. And normally, for me, it's always the other way around. But the film, which is called The Quiet Girl, it's not called Foster, is just sublime.
I've seen The Quiet Girl, but I did not realize that it was Foster. I love Claire Keegan's writing, and I loved Foster. Oh, that's great. Always good for something to watch recommendations. Sometimes it's nice to put the book down and be entertained on the screen.
Yeah. So I'd recommend the book and the film. Yeah.
No, she is an author who I just feel like her books are slight, but they're so powerful. She says so much in such a little economy of words. I guess it's just, she's exquisite.
Yeah. And a funny thing, I was at Hay Literary Festival, which is a big UK festival, earlier this year, doing an event. And I was in the books tent afterwards, signing books for people who had come to the event. And there was a big queue, which was very lovely. And this woman came up to me with a copy of The Memory of Animals for me to sign. And she said, "Oh, I really loved Small Things Like These, your previous book," which
Oops.
is Claire Keegan's
Yep.
book. And I just couldn't pretend that it was mine.
No.
That would have been wrong. So I had to say to this woman, "Oh, that's not me."
Yep.
She was mortified and I was mortified. And I kind of said, "You don't have to buy this if you don't want to, because I'm not the author you thought I was." And she said, "No, I will buy it. I'll buy it."
I feel I'm like you have that secondhand embarrassment for someone. It happens.
Yeah. Oh, now it's funny, but yeah, at the time it was very awkward.
Yeah, one of those awkward life exchanges, but
yeah.
Well, I have kept you longer than the promise, couple minutes over the promise, 40 minutes or so, but this has been just such a delight and a dream come true. And I so enjoy your books. My followers enjoy your books. I can't wait for the next one. It's always so nice to have something to look forward to. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know a lot of people were excited about this one, and it was very gracious of you.
Oh, it's been great fun to chat. Really nice. Really nice. And I will see you on Instagram.
You will definitely see me on Instagram. I will be watching for your next book. And if people out there aren't following, Claire's got a great Instagram page and she gives book recommendations regularly and takes you into her library, and it's super fun. So her handle is writer Claire Fuller. Am I right?
That's right.
Writer. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You can find her there. So, all right, Claire, thank you ever so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. Happy writing.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye.